the WNBA are currently treading dangerous waters. It's sharks out there, y'all. It is sharks out there in the deep ends of that water. Reality is hitting, and the playoffs have the potential to expose even more. Ratings could potentially crash in this year's WNBA playoffs without Caitlin Clark. Networks have their eyes peeled to what is going on, and ticket prices plummeted 30% while Caitlin Clark was out with her.
Ever seen a house of cards, meticulously built, tower higher and higher until it seems to touch the ceiling? You watch in awe, knowing it's fragile, but impressed by the sheer spectacle of it all. That was the WNBA in 2025. A stunning structure of record profits, sold-out arenas, and mainstream buzz. But then, one single card was pulled, and the entire thing didn't just wobble, it imploded. Silence followed, empty seats, plummeting ratings, and a shocking truth was exposed for the entire world to see. This isn't just a story about a basketball injury. This is a devastating case study in how a billion-dollar sports league put all its hopes on one player, and what happened the second she was gone.
The WNBA and the Indiana Fever did not want people to know that Caitlin Clark was going to be out for the season. I can tell you, from the very day that they decided to let that go public, everything has dropped off a cliff. Views on this channel, the television ratings, the interest, Thanos snapped out of existence. People were trying to hang on to the possibility this whole time. Look, so many people stayed engaged with the team because they thought the cavalry was coming.
Before we uncover the full story, if you're fascinated by the real drama behind the sports headlines, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. What we're about to dive into is more revealing than anything you'll see on the nightly news. It started with a phenomenon named Caitlin Clark. She wasn't just a rookie, she was a cultural earthquake. After shattering collegiate records with the Iowa Hawkeyes, where she became the NCAA Division I all-time leading scorer, Clark brought a tidal wave of new fans to the WNBA that transcended traditional basketball audiences. The numbers were absolutely staggering. During her final college seasons, she drew unprecedented public interest. Her game set attendance and television viewership records that smashed decades-old benchmarks.
Late July, the WNBA proudly flaunted ratings for the All-Star Game, which drew 2.2 million viewers. Of course, they conveniently failed to mention that ratings were down 36% from the record ratings that Caitlin Clark pulled the year before. Early August, ESPN pointed out that the Seattle Spankers and the Indiana Felines, without Caitlin Clark, drew 1.6 million on ABC. ESPN claimed that WNBA ratings were up 20% over last year, mostly without Caitlin Clark playing. But over the last 3 or 4 weeks, both the WNBA and the media have been strangely silent. I wonder...
The 2024 National Championship game, where Clark played against South Carolina, set the women's college basketball viewership record with 18.9 million viewers, making it the first NCAA women's basketball title game to outdraw the men's championship. Upon joining the Indiana Fever as the first overall draft pick, Clark's impact immediately translated to the professional level. The 2024 WNBA draft, where she was selected, averaged 2.45 million viewers, making it the most watched WNBA telecast since 2000. Her regular season debut against the Connecticut Sun became the most watched WNBA game since 2002 and the most watched ever on ESPN2 or any cable network. Teams across the league began moving home games to larger arenas to accommodate the unprecedented demand. The Los Angeles Sparks, Las Vegas Aces, Washington Mystics, and Atlanta Dream all relocated games against the Fever to venues that could hold thousands more fans. Before her season-ending injury in 2025, the average price for a WNBA ticket had reached $89, a figure that would have been unthinkable just 2 years prior.
And again, she's only on one team, but a very big chunk of the total attendance in WNBA is from the Indiana Fever. They have the second highest home attendance, and teams are literally moving arenas. So yeah, a lot of teams, whether it be the Lynx opening the Upper Bowl whether it be the Wings, the Dream, the Sky, all of these teams moving games. All of these teams are moving games for the Indiana Fever, regardless of who it is. They all have to sell those seats. And a lot of people don't want to go, and it's super cheap. Like, it's a lot easier to fill a 10,000 seat arena without Caitlin Clark than to fill 20,000. So you're going to have to find a way to do it anyway, which is what a lot of people are going to be doing, trying to sell tickets.
The league proudly boasted about unprecedented growth, massive new TV deals, and a future that finally looked financially secure. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was talking expansion, new franchises, and a revolution in women's sports. It felt like a corner had been permanently turned. The WNBA had arrived, and Caitlin Clark was the undisputed engine of that arrival. But that engine was running too hot, and the foundation was far weaker than anyone wanted to admit. On May 26, 2025, the news broke. Caitlin Clark will be sidelined for at least 2 weeks with a strained quad. Then came another setback, a groin injury. Finally, the crushing announcement she would miss the remainder of the season. The reaction wasn't just disappointment from fans. It was a full-blown financial market correction that happened in the blink of an eye.
But before Caitlin Clark's season-ending injury, WNBA tickets were averaging $89. The moment she went down, price crashed nearly 30%, plummeting to $62 a seat. That's kind of crazy. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but obviously the biggest reason is
that $89 average ticket, it instantly crashed nearly 30%, plummeting to just $62 a seat. But that was just the league-wide average. The real story was much more devastating. For games where Clark was specifically scheduled to play, the bottom fell out completely. The highly anticipated matchup against the Chicago Sky, which had been moved to the United Center to accommodate over 20,000 fans eager to see Clark face Angel Reese, demonstrated the brutal economics of her absence. Before her injury, the average ticket price was a breathtaking $210, with the cheapest seat costing $86. After the announcement, the average price cratered to $95, with get-in prices dropping to a mere $25, a 71% collapse in value. In Washington, a game moved to a bigger arena in Baltimore saw tickets that were once $41 drop to just $14.
Ratings for nationally televised games have mysteriously disappeared. I knew the WNBA lived in a world of make-believe, but I never realized they were magicians. It seems when ratings fail to meet expectations, the WNBA makes ratings disappear faster than pants at the Butt Bongo Festival. Sports Media Watch, which is the go-to source for sports ratings, Sports Media Watch, they have not updated WNBA ratings since August.
The data was undeniable and everywhere. The WNBA's ticket market wasn't dipping. It was in freefall, and Caitlin Clark's presence was the only parachute. Without her, the league was plummeting back to earth at a terrifying speed, exposing what critics had warned about all along. The growth was built on one superstar, not sustainable interest in the product itself. And then, something even more telling happened than the financial collapse. The silence. Before Clark's injury, you couldn't turn on ESPN or FS1 without seeing heated debates about Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, or the WNBA's meteoric rise.
The WNBA playoffs begin on Sunday. Have you noticed that no one is talking about it? This time last year, the WNBA was dominating talk shows on ESPN and FS1. Content creators on YouTube were flooding the platform with WNBA videos. This year, it's complete silence. Obviously, ratings for the playoffs are going to be a flaming ass fire. But if I'm the WNBA, I am concerned.
Prominent commentators were leading shows with segments about the league's breakthrough moment, with networks dedicating unprecedented airtime to women's basketball. But the moment she was ruled out for the season, the sports media world went almost completely mute. The very networks that had championed the league's growth suddenly had little to say. Commentators who couldn't stop talking about Clark now didn't waste more than a few minutes on the entire playoffs.
We talked about Jason Whitlock disowning the WNBA. True to his word, hasn't spoken a lick about the WNBA since. Colin Cowherd trashing the WNBA. It's Caitlin Clark and only Caitlin Clark. Last year, he used to lead shows talking Caitlin Clark, talking WNBA. This year, with her injury, didn't even bother wasting more than 10 minutes talking talking about the WNBA this year. No Shanae, no Elle Duncan, no Monica McNutt, none of those.
Most revealingly, the ratings reports mysteriously vanished. Sports Media Watch, the go-to source for sports viewership data, simply stopped updating WNBA numbers in August, leading many to suspect the true figures were so embarrassingly low that the league and its partners were desperate to hide them. This media blackout spoke volumes. The hype was gone, and the harsh reality of an uninteresting product, without its main attraction, was left exposed. Even as the playoffs approached, the usual media frenzy was conspicuously absent. The WNBA, which had been dominating sports talk shows during the previous season, was now fighting for mere minutes of coverage, proving that the media's interest wasn't the league itself, but specifically in the Caitlin Clark phenomenon.
Now, you know, them Caitlin Clark tickets was hard to get your hands on. It don't matter if she was playing in LA, Indiana, Atlanta, Seattle. It did not matter. Afghanistan. It didn't matter. It was hard to get your hands on a Caitlin Clark ticket. Y'all seen how many people showed up in Iowa? They could have filled up a football stadium. A football stadium. Super Bowl. Yeah, that is the demand for.
Which leads to the million-dollar question: was this entire disaster preventable? Many fans and analysts believe the answer is a resounding yes. Caitlin Clark entered the league and was immediately met with a level of physical targeting that was brutal even by professional sports standards. Hard fouls, cheap shots, and a culture of excessive physicality seemed to flourish around her, often broadcast for millions to see. The league that should have been building protective systems around its most valuable asset instead seemed to passively allow the dangerous environment to continue. From that initial quad strain to the multiple groin injuries that followed, Clark's body quite literally broke down under the relentless pressure. The WNBA's failure to consistently officiate this physical play and protect its golden goose isn't just a controversy. It's a catastrophic business failure of monumental proportions.
A Nike commercial other than a Gatorade commercial. How many commercials have you seen of companies putting WNBA players as the face of their commercial? I can't think of one. The only commercial that comes to mind is the Paige Becker's Coach commercial, and they don't even put that on television. That seems to be strictly a League Pass commercial that they show us while we're watching WNBA on League Pass. Other than that, has there been any State Farm commercials not featuring Caitlin Clark that you've seen throughout?
They didn't safeguard the one thing propping up the entire operation, and they watched as their entire financial future was systematically dismantled by poor management and a toxic on-court environment. The league's leadership faced criticism for not implementing stronger protections for star players, especially when those players were driving unprecedented economic growth. This failure became especially glaring when Clark's absence revealed how dependent the entire enterprise had become on one individual, exposing the lack of depth in the league's broader appeal. The economic ripple effect went far beyond the turnstiles.
The whole sports media is upset at the WNBA for what they've been doing to Caitlin Clark. You hear me? Depriving everybody from enjoying the game of basketball. You hear me? She put women basketball back on the map. Yes, the WNBA has been irrelevant. And I'm glad everybody is speaking up. Colin Cowherd, Jason Whitlock, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless. Yeah, everybody upset. Bruh, like, these women, they so petty, bruh, and they don't even care, dog. They don't mind hurting themselves just to hurt you, bruh. That's crazy.
Remember those merchandise sales that exploded by over 500% during Clark's rookie year? They've plummeted dramatically. Retailers are now stuck with piles of unsold jerseys that aren't number 22, facing massive inventory backups they can't move. Corporate sponsors who jumped in during the hype, pouring money into partnerships based on those incredible growth metrics, are now quietly rethinking their commitments. They signed up for the Caitlin Clark effect, and now that it's gone, the value of their investment has crashed along with everything else. The league's desperate attempt to pivot and promote other stars have largely flopped. While players like Io Wilson and Paige Buchers have secured endorsements, the contrast remains stark. There are no State Farm commercials featuring other players that have achieved the same cultural penetration as Clark's from the logo campaign, Gatorade's Let Her Cook campaign, intended to highlight multiple players, faced controversy and mixed reception, failing to generate equivalent engagement. The engagement has evaporated because the audience was never there for the WNBA as a whole. They were there for Caitlin Clark specifically. The league's inability to use her spotlight to build up the entire brand represents a catastrophic failure of vision and execution, wasting what might be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to establish sustainable growth. This entire crisis validates the toughest criticism skeptics have always had about the WNBA. Its recent success wasn't built on genuine, sustainable interest in women's basketball as a product, but rather on the singular, transcendent star power of one incredible athlete. The market has now spoken with brutal, mathematical clarity. The numbers don't lie. WNBA basketball, without Caitlin Clark, is a product that most sports consumers simply do not want to buy, no matter how low the price drops. Fans themselves echoed this sentiment online, with one stating it's unwatchable without her, while another asked her injury, deflated ticket prices, or just prove she's the entire league's economy. This isn't a dip, it's a fundamental rejection. The league's popularity wasn't real, it was borrowed, and the lender is called in the debt. The harsh mathematical reality shows that the WNBA without Clark generates the exact same level of fan interest it did before she arrived, virtually none on the national scale. Even with other talented players, the league has struggled to maintain mainstream attention without its primary draw, raising serious questions about its long-term viability and business model. The exposure of this unsustainable model now threatens not only current operations, but future expansion plans and the landmark media rights deals that were negotiated at the peak of Clark mania. This entire crisis validates the toughest criticism skeptics have always had about the WNBA. Its recent success wasn't built on a genuine, sustainable surge of interest in women's basketball as a whole. It was built on the singular, transcendent star power of one incredible athlete. The market has now spoken with brutal mathematical clarity, delivering a verdict that cannot be spun or explained away. The numbers don't lie. WNBA basketball without Caitlin Clark is a product that most sports consumers simply do not want to buy, no matter how low the price drops or how aggressively it is marketed. This sharp decline forces us to ask an uncomfortable question. Was the league's growth authentic, or was it merely a temporary loan on the popularity of a single individual? Fans themselves echoed this devastating sentiment across social media platforms, with one stating it's unwatchable without her, while another asked a piercing question. Did her injury, deflated ticket prices, or just prove she's the entire league's economy? The data suggests it's overwhelmingly the latter. This is a simple dip or a minor correction that any sports league might face after losing a star player. This is a fundamental rejection of the product as it exists without its main attraction. The league's skyrocketing popularity wasn't built on a rock-solid foundation of broad appeal. It was borrowed against the fame of Caitlin Clark, and the lender, public interest, has now called in the debt, leaving the league exposed. The evidence of this is everywhere you look. Look at the television ratings for games that didn't feature Clark even before her injury, while games with her were shattering records, often outperforming MLB and NHL broadcasts in the same time slots. Many other WNBA matchups continue to draw audiences that were, frankly, in line with the league's historical norms, often well under 500,000 viewers. This two-tiered system of interest proves that the audience wasn't there for the WNBA. It was there for her. The league's business model effectively became a Caitlin Clark tour, where she was the main event and the other teams were merely the supporting acts. Without the headliner, the show cannot go on at the same scale. This reality presents an existential challenge for the league's leadership and its future. It exposes a dangerous vulnerability, an over-reliance on one personality to drive virtually all key revenue streams: tickets, media rights, merchandise, and sponsorships. A sustainable sports league draws fans to the game itself, to the logos on the front of the jersey, not just a name on the back of one. The painful truth the WNBA must now confront is that it failed to use Clark's unprecedented spotlight to permanently elevate the entire league in the eyes of the casual sports fan. The moment she left the court, the casual fans left with her, returning to the NFL, NBA, and MLB, revealing that the WNBA's moment was fragile and conditional. This isn't just a crisis. It's the ultimate test of whether the league can build something lasting from the fragments of its borrowed fame. So where does this leave the future? Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is now facing an impossible situation. Her entire growth strategy, her expansion plans, her promises of new era, all of it was tied to a player who is now in street clothes on the sidelines. The playoffs which should be the league's premier showcase, are facing the prospect of ratings so low that networks might hesitate to bid the same amount for TV rights next time. This creates a brutal cascade. Lower ratings mean less advertising revenue, which threatens the salary structures and operational budgets the league has been trying to build. The WNBA's moment in the sun has been revealed as a mirage, and the path forward is darker and more uncertain than ever. The league is learning the hardest of lessons. Sustainable success demands more than one superstar. It requires a deep, resilient product that people care about even when the main attraction is gone. And right now, that simply doesn't exist. What do you think? Is there any way for the WNBA to recover from this? Or was Caitlin Clark their one and only shot at mainstream success? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive into the real business of sports revealing, show us some support. Smash that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more content they won't show you on the highlight reels. Thanks for watching.